Everyone makes mistakes. Let's get this right. Nobody's perfect. Well, apart from one man. But nobody is perfect. Nobody is faultless. Nobody is, impeccable. Everyone makes errors, and that's forgivable. Because if we don't make mistakes, we never learn from our mistakes. That's the only way as humans that we learn, is by making mistakes. We make a mistake and we learn either not to do that again, or we repeat the same mistake, and that shows that we have not learned and we're not improving as people. And to improve as people, we improve by making mistakes. However, some people make mistakes and they continually make mistakes and they don't ever seem to learn from those mistakes. And I don't mind people making errors. As someone who manages people, I coach people to improve from those mistakes they've learned. But one thing that I will not tolerate under any circumstances is someone who will take the mickey, someone who is narcissistic, someone who will do things only for their own self-end and their own self-improvement, who will do things purely out of a sense of self-interest. That is not someone who I will accept. Someone who is only in it for themselves, someone who takes the mickey out of my football club, or our football club, should I say, has no place at our football club. Someone who runs our football club down at every opportunity has no place at our football club. Someone who makes decisions which damage the health and damage the prosperity and damage the future of our football club have no place at our football club. Now, for me, Andrew Kavanagh, Parag Marathe have to now show that they are responsible owners. Because at this moment in time, they are trying, they are showing themselves to be actually worse than the Parks, worse than Bennett, worse than all of those guys in what they're doing and the decisions they're making. Keeping Kevin Thelwell and Patrick Stewart in post is a fundamental error. Kevin Thelwell is, I think, a major issue, and someone who has, I think, massively hampered and held back this managerial search, and I will explain those comments in a moment. On Patrick Stewart is a CEO who is spectacularly failing at every single aspect of his job. He has done nothing to improve this club. He has done nothing to move this club forward. In fact, at every opportunity, the man will throw our fans under the bus. He will take every opportunity to criticise the fans. He will do everything possible he can to show his disrespect and his distaste for the fans. Witness the banners, the posters, where straight away, that man is on our cases and is saying, look, it's the fans, blame the fans, blah, blah, blah. Mate, you're the CEO of Rangers. Stand by the club. Don't throw them under the bus at every opportunity. We know you're an Aberdonian. We know you love Aberdeen, but, at least try and hide it. People talk about him, for example, looking at this club and we talk about him being always the ex-Manchester United CEO. He was only ever a temporary CEO at Manchester United. And let's face it, working for Manchester United is hardly a glowing recommendation. They are without doubt one of the worst run football clubs in Europe at this present moment in time. They've spent over £1 billion and yet have not improved, have gone through a succession of managers since Sir Alex and have got worse rather than better. So I don't think that working for Manchester United automatically makes you good at your job. In fact, I think it is the polar opposite, especially as Manchester United, who were the top wage earning, the top revenue club in world football, are destined to fall behind the likes of Liverpool, Arsenal and Manchester City in the next set of rankings that are expected to come out very, very soon. Spectacular failure that Mr. Patrick Stewart was part of. But in terms of this man here, Kevin Thelwell, he really genuinely has done an awful lot of bad for this football club. In fact, I would go as far as to say there is not a track record of any sort of success. As I put out on the community post earlier today on Mr. Kevin Thelwell, just a highlight for you. He has hired the worst part of he was part of the group that hired the worst manager in our club's history. Let's let that sink in for the moment. The worst manager in our club's history. A man who proved himself to be worse than Pedro Caixinha, who proved himself to be worse than Paul Le Guen, who proved himself to be worse than Michael Beale. That is really a massive achievement. And now look, I'm no fan of serial debtors. However, He sold a 50-plus goal scorer over 2 seasons for under £5 million, which to me is ridiculous. Why would you sell someone who has scored 50 goals in 2 seasons for under £5 million? You know, if you look at most other leagues around Europe, if you've got a striker who scored 50 plus goals in 2 seasons, they go for a substantial amount more than £5 million. He then paid 8.5, rising to 10, for a striker who only this week broke a 572-day goal drought. A striker who he paid 15 million for from Sporting Lisbon, yet has failed spectacularly at Everton on every occasion that he has participated in their team. Again, I don't understand that one. He spent £30 million nearly on players. Yes, he brought money in, I get that, but he still spent money on players that have made us a worse team. He signed the likes of Max Aarons, who looks like a bomb scare. Thelwell, who looks like a competition winner. He signed Nasajiga, who looks like a bomb scare. He signed Manuel Fernandes, who doesn't seem to exist anymore anywhere at the club. He signed players who have just genuinely failed. Chimiti obviously been another one, massively on every single occasion. He then sort of followed this up with a kind of hold my beer moment by appointing his son as the chief scout of the football club. Nepotism at its very, very finest. I also want to revisit as well a couple of quotes from these 2 outstanding individuals who have been picked to lead our club forward. This is what they said about Russell Martin after he was appointed as the manager of our football club. One of the best coaches I've worked with, Kevin Thelwell. A culture architect, a standout candidate, said Patrick Stewart. A man who didn't go on to create a culture, a man who couldn't create a culture, a man who genuinely didn't know what a culture was. In fact, the only culture that Russell Martin probably knows is the one that is growing in the bottom of his shower. A standout candidate, like I've always said. Who else did they interview? Mr. Blobby, Mr. Tumble, Coco the fucking clown. Who else did they interview? One of the best coaches Kevin Thelwell has ever worked with. Now, that doesn't say a lot for the other coaches that Kevin Thelwell has worked with. Sean Dyche, Rafa Benitez, just to name 2, but example. But let's just put this in perspective. Rafa Benitez, he worked with. Rafa Benitez is a Champions League winner. Yes, Kevin, outstanding. This manager went on to be sacked after 122 days and now holds the record as the club's worst ever manager. This man has spectacularly failed on every single occasion. Now there is stories emerging that one of the reasons why the Gerrard, and some of you might like this, I don't know, but it's not just the whole Gerrard situation. It's the kind of message behind this. Forget the personality who involved. Just concentrate on the message behind this. Kevin Thelwell blocked the move for Steven Gerrard because he felt that Gerrard did not present value for money and also did not fit the model that Rangers are creating. The model where he has ultimate power, he decides on the players, he brings in the players, he is God Almighty when it comes to the playing squad. How can that be sustainable where a manager, the man who coaches, picks and leads the team on the park, has very little say over who is recruited by the club? Absolute, complete and utter tosh from Kevin Thelwell. Now, there is further information that has come out over the last few days over regards Kevin Thelwell. So he's appointed his 26-year-old son as head of recruitment. I mean, read the room. Genuinely read the fucking room. Honestly, think about it. If you're sitting there and you are being criticised from pillar to post by fans, fan media, the media, analysts, the league, everybody, the one thing you don't then go and do is double down on that by appointing your son into the management structure. A man who has never held the position as head of recruitment. He's gone from Norwich, no disrespect to Norwich, to Rangers. I mean, honestly, it is like going from being the CEO of Bob's Corner Shop to being the CEO of Waitrose. It does not work out well in the long run. So has appointed his 31-year-old ex-colleague Dan Purdy as technical director. Yes, Dan Purdy worked with Kevin Thelwell at Everton. Everton were only too happy to get rid of Dan Purdy. What does that tell you about Dan Purdy? Is due to appoint his friend and ex-colleague Jonathan Hunter Barnett from Wolves as head of youth development. His son, his mate, his ex-colleague. Is this just jobs for the boys? Is he just taking the fucking piss? Or what? Has paid 10 million plus add-ons for unproven youth striker. Well, it's actually 8.5 million, but there we go. He's paid a significant loan fee and club record for loan wages to Nasser Jiga from his friend Matt Hobbs at his ex-club Wolves. Now, I know people use their contacts and whatever, but this is starting to stink to high heaven. Has paid a significant amount of money to sign Mikey Moore on loan from his friend Johan Lang at Spurs, who he worked with at Wolves. Jobs for the boys? Or does this genuinely need to be investigated by someone at the club? I'm not going to say anything more on that because I don't want to get into legal trouble, but honestly, to me, this is starting to stink to high heaven of nepotism, of cronyism, of the sorts of things that, if this was happening in the government, for example, it would bring politicians down. It would mean ministers resigning. It would bring governments down with this amount of nepotism, cronyism that is going on quite clearly within our football club. Now, what amazes me, guys, is why the hell can Andrew Kavanagh and Parag Marathe not see this is spectacularly failing? Why isn't Greta Steinson, who is obviously the football guru behind the organisation, turning around to these two guys and saying, he's taking the fucking piss, sort him out? To me, yes, the manager and appointing a new manager is absolutely vital. I understand that. I get that. Danny Rule has ruled himself out. Gerrard has gone. McInnes not in the running anymore. Bo Svensson not in the running anymore. All these people are like rats deserting a sinking ship. But what also is a fundamental part of the issue is the model that Rangers quite clearly have in place, where Kevin Thelwell is some sort of Hitler-type, Third Reich-type figure, where he has utter power and utter dominance and no one dares question the Führer of Rangers, is not going to work. Thelwell is a fundamental problem within this football club and must be removed by the football club. The fans must make it clear to the ownership that this man is not welcome, not wanted at our football club. He must be quite clearly shown and told by fans on every occasion, you are not wanted, you are not liked, you are not needed, we don't want you here, we don't want you anywhere near our football club. You are a curse on our football club. Guys, this is fundamentally a massive issue. And just changing the manager will in the long run not sort the problem. The problem goes higher. The problem is part of the fundamental model that runs this club. And until Stewart and Thelwell are gone from our football club, nothing will get better. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching, guys. If you've enjoyed the content, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Catch you on the next one.